What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Double M Live Show. You already know what it is, man. You got our boy Mike Nice in the building. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. I'm always hyped, always ready to go. It's Double M Season 3. It's chugging along. Train is moving forward, Marv. The train is moving forward.
Episode 75, man.
75?
Episode 75. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, Mr. Mike Nice.
Shout out to Vince Wilfork real quick.
Yeah, hey, Vince won us a couple of rings now.
Sure did. Shout out to Vince, number 75.
I would love to see Vince back in a Patriots coaching staff, maybe. You know,
I'd like that. I would like that.
The D-line needs some help, and Vince Wilfork could add a little juice in there.
I'm sure Kraft and Belichick, they can make it sound real nice and sweet for that guy to bring him back up this way.
Exactly. But no, we got so much to talk about on this episode of Double M Live. You guys already know how this works, man. Make sure you like, subscribe, share. This is a really special show. And it's March. It's Women's Month. If you saw the show last week, you know what we're doing, man. We're representing and sharing flowers to all our beautiful women out there. And we definitely got something special later on for you guys on the show as well. But Mr. Mike Nice, man, we have something special today. We're going to talk sports. You know, this is what we do well at. But we got something special for them. Why don't you tell us on the playlist today?
We got a special guest on the playlist. You know, thankfully, Double M can continue to make things happen. We getting guests on the show so we can hear their perspective, their point of view. You know, the show's not only about Mar, but it's about you guys tuned in and listening. And then the guests that we bring on also add an extra pizzazz and extra bang to the show for sure. So this special guest that we have here today, let me tell you a little something about this guy right here. He's a Boston Celtics writer for the Boston Sports Journal. He's also an NBA writer for Bleacher Report. And he's also a university lecturer at Boston University College, doing his thing, giving back to the young kids for sure. And as well, don't forget, he is host of the A-List podcast with Kwani Lunis. Great podcast. Check that out for sure. We got to introduce our guy, Sherrod Blakely, into the building. Sherrod.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, fellas?
Doing good, man.
Happy to have you here, man.
Man, I'm glad to be here, man. And I look, I appreciate the shout out for the jobs, plural, not single.
You're doing your thing. You're staying busy, man. And it's great to see. I know I personally want to thank you for over the years. You've been a great inspiration to me. I know Marv can probably say that as well. Just seeing you in the field doing your thing with many different positions, man. Great inspiration for two young black males coming up for sure. Thank you for all that you've been doing for sure, man.
Yeah,
man, that's part of the plan. That's part of the plan to make this kind of pave the way for you young fellas to keep rolling down going forward, man. That's what we do this for. So appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
Of course, here on Double M, and we tackle a lot of topics, you know, things that are going on with the culture and also what's going on in sports specifically. And we can't talk about what's going on in culture and sports without talking about what we are living through right now in the pandemic. We're living through a pandemic right now. You know, states are opening up freely. We don't have to get into if that's the right move or not at the moment. But in your field of work, how has it been, you know, navigating, covering sports through COVID-19 and this pandemic?
Well, it's tough. I mean, it's tough because so many of the things that I've found through my years of being a sports journalist that work for me can't work at all now. One of my strengths is just getting to know players and spending time with them, not just on the court, but off the court. I think back to like around a year ago this time, I was in Marietta, Georgia, sitting in the gym with Jaylen Brown's AAU coach and his high school coach working on this big takeout. And that was the last assignment that I did on the road because shortly after that, everything shut down. And that's the challenge these days. It's just really trying to figure out how can you come up with content that is going to be consumed when you can't create content the way that you're used to. So to me, you know, it forces all of us to kind of step our creative game up and just do things that are a little different. As Mike probably knows, I'm not sure if you know Marvin, but I'm the chair of the National Association of Black Journalists Sports Task Force. And one of the things that I did, during this pandemic is I created a webinar series called Innovation in Isolation, where we looked at different components of journalism like storytelling, podcasting, and had different folks from within our membership talk about that through a webinar. Jamel Hill, for example, who you're familiar with, I had her lead a session on podcasting. We had another one on storytelling that I had Malika Andrews from ESPN leading the way with that. And also Master Stefasian, Bleach Report, was also part of that. And that to me was just my way of just using my creative juices in a way that's a little bit different than what I'm used to, but trying to deliver content that people want to consume and thus be involved with and engage with. And it's a challenge. The good news is that it looks like we're starting to turn the corner. It looks like we're starting to get closer to doing things the way we're accustomed to doing. And for an OG like me, that's a good thing. Because there's only so much engagement I can do through social media and, start to look and do some things with Twitch and some of these other different platforms that are definitely, I would say, your game, where y'all need to be going forward. But I'm going to be rocking with y'all for a little bit until it's my time to flash out the deuces and go about my way. But I like that we're getting closer to being able to do some of the things that I just feel are in my wheelhouse. So life is good right now. No complaints.
Yeah,
that's good, man. That's good to hear.
These times have definitely caused people to get creative and how can they go about doing different things. And like you said, the fact that we're getting close to doing things the way we've been accustomed to, it'll help out a lot. But also the different things you've been able to open up and provide, it gives people a different avenue to look at for sure. But shout out to all you've been doing, all you continue to do. We still learning from you as time goes on. So we're grateful for that 100%, 100%.
Yeah, but you know what though, Mike? I mean, I would be remiss in not pointing out the fact that what you guys are doing is good for me too. Because here's the thing: whenever I'm working with young folks, whether you black, white, male, female, whatever, there has to be this synergy that we get. Like I remember a lot of times where I would see you in over in Burlington. And as much as I think you probably benefited from me telling you XYZ 1, 2, 3, hearing you talk about what you were doing helped me as well. And so, as much as I appreciate the props and all that, I got to give you some props too, brother, because when I see young folks like you doing these type of things, I take a lot of pride in that, because that's what this should be about. I can't come up if I can't come up with somebody, if I don't bring someone with me. That's, full disclosure, that's a big reason why I'm doing a podcast, because I knew that was an opportunity to bring someone as a co-host with me that probably wouldn't get that opportunity anywhere else. And we're talking about Kwani A. Lunis, who's my co-host on the A-List podcast. And, the fact that she's a woman, the fact that she's black, the fact that she's in the sports world, it sets her apart. And I wanted to give her a platform where she could really work to hone her skills in that particular area. And so, I'm excited about that part of my day and my job on a regular basis. But look, man, y'all the future. Look, I'm still in the game, and I still, to me, I'm feeling like, like a poor man's Vince Carter. Like I'm still in the game. I can still knock a couple shots down. But listen here, I understand that, Jaylen Browns, Tatum's, the Trae Youngs, y'all cats, y'all the future. And I get that. And I'm cool with that. So, like I said, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing for as long as I can do it. And when it's time for me to move aside and let y'all fully through the door, cool. But in the meantime, I'll be setting screens for y'all to keep doing your thing.
You're more like Chris Paul right now in the game. Veteran, but you're still in the All-Star game. We still recognize.
I like that. I like that.
For sure. But yeah, you've been doing great work. You continue to doing great work, and everybody is going to continue to follow. If you can see scrolling along the bottom, make sure you follow Sherrod, doing his thing, various media outlets for sure. He's everywhere. So check him out.
Mike, you didn't tell me he was on Twitch. We would have added the Twitch handle too. Man,
you know what? I don't spend much time on there, so it ain't worth people checking me out there. IG, Twitter. Yeah, IG.
We're trying to get used to. Twitch is something that Marvin and I are slowly, possibly going to dive into, but we know
Twitch is kind of like you got to look real hard to find me over there, real hard. I'm there, but you got to search. But IG and Twitter though, those are my spots for now, and Facebook too. So.
Cool. But let's dive into some NBA talk. Let's dive into some sports talk because the NBA season through this pandemic and whatnot has been chugging along, even though the world has been dealing with what it's been dealing with. The NBA said, hey, we're going full throttle no matter what. And we all know the story by now. Guys are getting dropped from games because of contact tracing. Games are getting canceled. It's crazy times in the NBA right now, but they're still pushing forward. And, you know, we're getting past the All-Star break, getting into the second half of the season. So as we've gone through this wild season so far, my question to you, Sherrod, are there any big surprises or disappointments that have taken place during this 2020-2021 season so far?
Well, let me just start with the biggest surprise for me, and that has been the play of the Utah Jazz. I thought they'd be pretty good, but I didn't think they would be this good, this dominant, this consistently dominant. What has separated them from a lot of teams in the NBA right now is their ability to control the action at both ends of the floor. There have been games that I've watched them on TV, and I'll be watching the game. They'll be down by 7. I'll go to the kitchen, get me a nice non-alcoholic beverage, come back, and they're up by 10. And I will only have been gone like maybe 3 minutes. They have the ability to turn the tide of games just like that. And the one thing that's different with them than a lot of teams that you see doing that is in the past, we've seen teams do that, and it was just a matter of them, flipping a switch and just kind of turning it on. And with them, it's not about the turn on, it's about the turn up because they play at a high level all the time. But when they get to that point where it's just, they kind of make it up in their minds that, okay, let's just turn this up and get this dub. They do it. And, just talking with different like league executives, because one of the things I did for Bleacher Report recently was I looked at the Utah Jazz and just, get some league executives' thoughts on just whether this team is for real or whether they just kind of faking us out the way the Atlanta Hawks did a couple years ago, the way the Milwaukee Bucks have the last couple of years where they have the best regular season record, and then they become like a little turtle come playoff time, just go in the shell, nowhere to be found when it matters most. And the thing that I was told more than anything is that this Utah team is different than those teams, because they have shown the ability to dominate you at both ends of the floor. And the comparison I've heard more than any to them is that they remind people of the 2004 Pistons, where you had Ben Wallace and Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton. But the one thing people have said was that the difference is this Utah team is better because they are an elite scoring team. And, as someone who was around that Detroit Pistons team back in 2004, their game plan was pretty simple. They would just beat you up, play great defense, and just find a way to win like 92-90, or they have a high scoring game and hit you with 104 and beat you by 15. This Utah team, if their defense isn't clicking, they can hold their own scoring with teams. If their offense is struggling, they can lock you down defensively. They are the team that I think is the biggest surprise. And if you talk about disappointments, I mean, you just got to keep it real. Boston Celtics. This is a team that we thought. This is a team that we fully anticipated would be in the mix. And I get that they've had some health and safety protocol issues. Tatum, testing positive for COVID. Kemba Walker with just some of the injuries he's had. But I don't want to hear it. I'm not trying to hear that anymore. They need to be better, and they're starting to show signs now of being better, but I'm still not ready to drink that Kool-Aid and pretend as if all is good. They still, I think, need to add another piece. And Danny Ainge, he's got some assets that he can use. I'm speaking specifically about the trade player exception that's worth like $28.5 million that they got in the Gordon Hayward deal with the Hornets that they can use. But the challenge that they're going to have is the type of players that they could use that for, that they would like to use that for. I just don't think that they are going to be able to entice teams to make the deal and pull the trigger. You're going to hear names like JJ Redick, Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin is another one. And I'm looking at those guys, and my first thought is, whose minutes are they going to take, and does that make you better? And as much as we talk about, and people talk about their need to add size, they need another big. I think their biggest need is just another guy that can get buckets. I think right now, because they're a team, I think the way they're built, their best defense most nights is going to be an elite offense. I think that's just how they are, unless they can somehow find a way to bring back an Al Horford, which is possible, because that would, to me, of all the people whose names that I've heard from different executives and different folks in the NBA about potential targets for the Celtics, that's the one that makes the most sense if you're talking about re-entering the conversation right now of being a team that can come out of the East. Because remember, Al Horford, he may be a year older, but he still is Joel Embiid's daddy on the court. He still owns him. That hasn't changed. And so that's one team that you match up well against. Al gives you the ability to stretch the floor when you play a team like Brooklyn, because you look at Brooklyn and their centers, great perimeter players, some of the best you'll find. But DeAndre Jordan ain't trying to guard no damn Al Horford out by the three-point line. He ain't trying to go there. And they don't have anyone that can fill that void. So that takes care of them. And Milwaukee is the one team that I think is just the way they're constructed, they're going to be problematic for the Celtics. But again, I look at the emergence of Tatum, the emergence of Jaylen Brown, and if you add an Al Horford type to the mix, I think that could give them a fighting chance to come out of the East. But I just think that right now, when you start looking at the entire NBA landscape, it's hard for me to imagine the next NBA champion not being a team from out West. And as much as the Lakers are deserving of being in that conversation, one, because they got LeBron James, and two, they're actually better talent-wise now than they were a year ago when they won it. If all their core guys are healthy, I look at Utah, as I talked about earlier. I look at the Phoenix Rising Suns. Shout out to Monty Williams, who is getting it done as a head coach.
Yes, he is.
So I'm really proud of what he's been able to do with that team. And Devin Booker is just he's that dude. He is that dude. And as you mentioned earlier, Marv, about CP3. Yeah, I mean, his numbers are not going to wow us anymore. We're past that. But his impact, his presence, his ability to manage the game at an elite level and do the one thing that I think always separates him from almost anyone and everyone, make the guys around him better. He does that as good as any player in the NBA right now, not named LeBron James. And because of that, the Suns are a team that you can't sleep on. But here's the problem with them. Chris Paul, for the first 82 games in a normal regular season, 62 this year, he's your guy. Yep. Get to the playoffs, MIA. He becomes Casper the Friendly Ghost. He becomes Casper the Friendly Ghost. You feel his presence, but you don't see it.
Right.
It doesn't get you where you need to get to. So I worry about Phoenix in that regard. And plus, again, they're not used to being the hunted. They're used to being the hunter. And that's something that they're going to have to get used to and adjust to. That's why I think at the end of the day, it'll be between Utah and the Lakers, and the Clippers might be able to cause a little bit of ruckus. But I just, we just saw Paul George the other night in the Garden, and he was Paul George down the stretch. Casper the Friendly Ghost, man. This league is full of Casper the Friendly Ghost, man. I'm telling you.
What makes you great, Sherrod? You answer questions that we haven't even asked yet that we were planning to ask. We had this whole segment about who you believe are going to be contenders and pretenders in this league, and you damn near just said it all. You said it all for us, and you really broke it down. And you even spoke about the Celtics and their needs. This is something Mike and I go back and forth about probably every single day that we see each other. What do the Celtics need? And I think Michael's bring it up. He's talking about a wing scorer. We never had a player to replace Gordon Hayward since the left. You brought up the TPE. It's looking like Danny's going to hold on to that till the offseason. Through the interviews that we're hearing, it doesn't look like there's going to be a favorable trade with that. I've been saying that there needs to be a stretch four. And you brought up Al Horford. He's more like a stretch five now in his day. But someone who can stretch the floor for this team when Jaylen and Tatum are driving in for a kick out a knockdown shooter. Tice has been all right, but we know when time goes down, you don't want Tice to be shooting those crunch time threes when it matters. So back to on Celtics needs, and Mike, I'll let you go. What is this team missing to be an elite team in the Final Four in the playoffs? Or is this team even, can this team even make it that far?
I honestly don't believe anymore that there's a simple fix during the regular season that can help this team get to that level. And it's sad because you would think a team coming off an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, they're probably a piece away from getting over the hump to being a legit contender, a legit championship contender. The Celtics seem like they're 2 and 3, possibly 4 pieces away from being that team you can really say, okay, they're a threat. So, you know, when they got the trade player exception with the Hayward deal, you would say, okay, maybe there's someone out there they can get that's going to put them over the edge. Now, I'm like, honestly, Danny Ainge, hold on to it during the offseason, because how many moves can you possibly make throughout the course of the season, in the middle of the season, that's really going to get you over the edge? It seems like the Celtics are a team that needs several moves that can help this team be a legit team. So, Sherrod, speak on your thoughts on that. I don't know if there's something that can be done to get the Celtics to the next level in the midst of the season.
Well, here's the thing that I think a lot of people forget about it. And I certainly, you know, full disclosure, I sometimes forget because the dude is never around. And that is Romeo Langford. When you talk about that big wing, someone who can defend multiple positions, someone who can come in there and give you a lift. When he was healthy near the end of last season, he started showing flashes of doing some things that, frankly, they desperately need. Now, is he going to go out there and get you a ton of points? No, he's not going to be a factor offensively. But when you look at their problems, you're left with a choice. Can you find someone who can fill the void and give you a lift offensively, or can you find someone out there who can be a difference maker to your team defensively? And you have a much better chance of finding a defender who can step in and help you. And I think Romeo is that guy, because one of the things Brad Stevens talked about a couple of weeks ago was that this team isn't built quite like those elite defensive teams they've had in the past. And I thought that was a real nice, generic, sanitized way of saying we don't D like we used to. We don't lock kids up like we used to. We don't put the clamps on cats like we used to. And a lot of that has to do with their personnel. I think Romeo Langford is a guy that brings them closer to being that type of team because, again, he has the physical makeup where he could, in theory, defend 1s, 2s, 3s, and maybe some 4s because of his length, because of his strength. Romeo is low-key strong. I just remember being in the locker room. Yeah, he's low-key stronger than he may appear. And I think he's a guy that if he's healthy, you know, he makes it easier for Celtics fans to just look the other way when Danny takes that traded player exception, keeps it in his pocket for the offseason. But they need to do something. They need some type of infusion of talent, whether it's Romeo getting back healthy, which would certainly help them, whether it's Kemba Walker continuing to play the way he has the last couple of games, which, you know, the Kemba Walker we've seen like the last 2 or 3 games is the Kemba Walker Celtics fans and certainly the Celtics were hoping they'd see all season long. But with Kemba, again, I want to believe that he's back. I want to believe that he's that dude. But look, as many times as I've seen Charlie Brown trying to kick that damn football and Lucy snatch it at the last minute, that's because he keeps falling for the okie doke. Yep. It's low to me. Cookies on the bottom shelf when you talk about Kemba Walker and his impact on the team. To me, the real question is, can he be consistent with his play? Because he has the ability to go out there and get you 25, 30 points any given night. But can he get back to being that guy that we saw in Charlotte and really early on in Boston, who could go out there and get you 20, 25 points pretty much every single night? And obviously, every now and then he'll go off for 35 or so, and every now and then he'll have maybe 15 or something in the teens. But can he consistently be in that 15 to 25 point range night in, night out? I don't know if he's back to being that healthy, but certainly if you can get Romeo back and you can get Kemba to being that type of player that we're accustomed to seeing, now all of a sudden that big 3 in the East, which right now I think you have to say is Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee, it becomes a Fantastic Four with the addition of the Celtics. But they're not there yet because there are factors that they have some control over happening. But until they do happen, they're going to be in that big, fat middle class of the East, which is, basically about 4 or 5 teams that are all 1 or 2 games above or below 500, including the freaking New York Knicks.
Woo, the resurgence.
They balling.
Because of back.
They balling.
I got a real question though, and it's something that's gotten real hot, in Boston media lately, and it's the idea of the fact that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, 2 great scorers, know how to score the ball, great all-star players, but they can't make the players around them better. That's the conversation that we've been hearing a lot in the city. And I thought about it a lot. I'm like, well, yeah, they're 2 great scorers. You get them the ball, isolation plays, these guys can make it happen. And sometimes when you talk about all-star players, superstar players, there are players out there that's all they are good at, scoring basketball. You need a bucket, you give them the ball. And as great as Kemba Walker is or can be if he stays consistent, he adds another scoring punch to the team. But how vital is it that this team maybe look to get possibly another facilitator? Because if you think about it, I know people have a love-hate relationship with Gordon Hayward, but when Gordon Hayward was on this team, he was in a sense another point guard. If the ball wasn't in Kemba's hand, it was probably in Hayward's hand, and sometimes he was possibly running the second unit as well. But do you think that as much as they can use a stretch big or get Langford back and help defensively, how big of a facilitator could they possibly go out and maybe find that can help the other guys? If Jaylen Brown and Tatum can't make the other guys better, do they need another player who can be a facilitator and make plays for the other guys who don't do much of anything?
Well, I don't think necessarily adding a facilitator is going to necessarily make them better and make it easier for them to make the guys around them better. I think more than that, they need a guy that has a presence, someone, and that presence can be they shoot the hell out of the ball. That presence can be they lock kids up. That presence can be they are a rebounding fiend, but they need a guy who has a specialty, something that they can lean on night in, night out, because they're at the point now where I think with the reason why I think Tatum and Brown haven't really made the guys around them that much better is because, remember, their games are still evolving as well. And it's hard to I think people to understand that when you talk about 2 players that are that dynamic at such an early age, it's kind of like when you're building a house. It takes a little bit of time for that foundation to settle. And when it settles, then you're able to build on that and make it this beautiful, the M&M Palace, the double M Palace, we'll just call it that. But until you get to that point, it's going to be a little shaky because your foundation hasn't settled in yet. And Tatum and Brown, those are their 2 foundation pieces, but neither one of those guys has really settled in to being that elite player. I mean, like right now, if you're talking about top 15, top 20 players, yeah, they might crack that. They'll probably crack that. But when you look at the guys that are clearly ahead of them, all those guys are established. I mean, like to me, they're in the same boat as a Devin Booker, as a Ja Morant, really good players, all-star caliber players, but they may not necessarily be ready to be in position to make the guys around them better. Because to me, the one thing about making guys around you better is that even when you're like not even on the floor, guys, I think, tend to play better. Like LeBron James, you look at all the teams that he has really just dragged to the finals, including, that one Cleveland team that at the Celtics, they're going to kick in themselves many a times that of losing that team because that team was trash. Yeah. LeBron is great, but his greatness to me was defined by getting that team to the finals because that team had no business at all. Anyway, I digress. The main thing that I think that the Celtics team has to really concern themselves with is not overreacting. Because remember, Tatum and Brown, they're 2 of the youngest superstars in the game. And I just don't think it's realistic to expect them to have all the answers to being a champion right now. You look around the league and you look at the teams that make deep playoff runs, no one is being led by guys that young. And you look at the teams that get to the conference finals, No one has their two best players that young. And so I think, you know, there has to be a little bit of perspective thrown into the, you know, and I hate to be the person to throw that cold, icy cold bucket of reality into the conversation, but that's just how it is. I mean, these are young players who are still settling in as the foundational pieces of this organization. And because there's still that period where they're still trying to cement themselves, if you will, building on top of them and expecting guys to be around them better, they need veterans around them more than they need the younger players. Because if you look at the guys around, I mean, you got Robert Williams, who's like third-year player. You got Grant Williams, who's like a second-year player. You got Tremont Waters. You got rookie Peyton. You start going down the line, and damn near everyone you talk about is still on their rookie contract.
Right.
And that's not what you expect to have when you're talking about winning a championship. You go and look at Philadelphia and their core. You go look at Milwaukee and their core. You go look at Brooklyn and their ridiculous core. You don't see cats on their rookie deals. You don't. And their leaders are, you know, have been around the block a little bit. Their leaders have had some ups and downs. Right now, James Harden was a much more ball dominant player when he was at Houston. But I would argue what he's doing now in Brooklyn is the best basketball he's ever played in the NBA. When you look at his scoring, you look at his playmaking, and the thing that he's doing that, and we've talked about this already, the guys around him are better. I mean, Bruce Brown, shout out to Bruce Brown from Boston. Shout out to Bruce. But his excellence this year is a byproduct of James Harden recognizing that I'm going to get eyeballs. KD is going to get eyeballs. Kyrie is going to get eyeballs. Is there anyone else on the crew who can go get us some buckets? And then you got Bruce. Here I be. Give me the rock. I'm going to, I'm going to be open. I'm going to be open. And so I give Bruce a lot of credit for recognizing his role, making the most of his role, and James Harden leading in a way that he's still going to get his, but he needs Bruce to get his. Right now, Harden is doing what I did not think was in his DNA, and that is making sure everyone at the table is getting fed, because he was just this obese, dynamic player in Houston who, not physically, but just in terms of his impact, just gobbling up everything. I got to get the points. I got to get the rebounds. I got to get the assists. Me. And now the situation is in Brooklyn. He's like, okay, Kyrie, you're going to get yours, but let me give you a little something off that I got. KD, I know you're going to get yours, but let me make sure you get a couple of dimes from me as well. Bruce, oh, damn, Bruce, you wide open. Shit, let me give you the rock too. And next thing you know, he's putting up these triple-double type numbers, like he's basically doing what Westbrook used to do, only he's doing it in an efficient manner, and his team's winning.
For sure. I want to stick with Tatum and Brown for a second, because they're in a unique situation. I think this is an amazing case study as well. I don't think we've ever seen two young wing superstars come up together. Of course, there was Jordan and Pippen, right? But Jordan was already established once Pippen came in. We have Kawhi and Paul George, but they're already veterans playing together. We had Vince and T-Mac, but they broke up. They got separated before we could really see them.
And it was family too. That's what made that one bad. I mean, that was like literally. We talk about, yeah, man, that's my cousin. No, that was like literally his cousin.
That's his cousin, and they broke up. So this is a really unique situation where you got two young superstars coming up together and leading a team. And early on in the year, you know, once Jalen really started to take off early this year, you started hearing the talks, right? Whose team is it? Maybe it started to really try to splash that. Is this Tatum's team, or is Brown taking over? And then, you know, Mike Gorman came on radio last week and pretty much talking about what Mike was just saying, how they're not making their team better, or they're stat padding right now, trying to show off their bag and show the world, okay, I'm trying to be an all-star. This is what we're going to do. Do you see that? Do you see much of that when you watch this team, that, you know, Tatum and Brown are really just trying to get their stats up and really try to dominate? You think they're beyond that, and they understand that them two are the nucleus and they can grow up together and be something big with the Celtics?
I just think there's so many factors that are coming into play that we want to ignore because it doesn't really make the narrative that we want to sell sexy. I mean, I think it's very sexy to say that they're pad statting, that they're trying to get theirs, that they're not really caring about winning. And yet when you watch them play, Jaylen Brown ain't taking no plays off defensively. Tatum might make mistakes on the defensive end, but he makes a lot of positive plays too. And I don't get this sense in watching him play that he's dogging it. Right. To me, the thing that people, and again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's the truth. You're talking about two cats who aren't even 25 yet. And not to get too deep and too, into the physics of things, but when I talk about foundation and things like that, I guess the best way to put it, they're still learning how to learn what works and what doesn't work. And again, there's a whole conversation about the frontal cortex of the brain and how that develops, and it doesn't really settle into you're like 25 or so to where your biases, your strengths, the things that you are passionate about kind of settle in and they kind of last with you for life. They haven't really hit that point yet. If you look at just the medical history of just how humans are put together, which is a completely different conversation that I am not going to go down that road with you fully. But I will say this, they are still learning how to win in this league. And they're having to learn on the fly with no real playbook, because the guys that were around that could have been that voice of reason, could have given that insight, Kyrie Irving gone, Al Horford gone, in Kemba Walker, he's a different kind of leader. He's more about, just I'm gonna lead by example, and I don't even want to lead by example. I remember when Kemba Walker first got here, I can't even tell you how many times he said, "Look, man, I just want to help them guys be superstars. I want to help them get better," which is great, and it's refreshing to hear that from a proven, established guy like Kemba. But at the same time, there's a part of me thinking like, "But damn, bro, they kind of need you to show them the
That's all I've been saying. That's all I've been saying."
Yeah, and I know for them, it's a tough situation because, with all due respect to Kemba Walker, who is a hell of a player, love Kemba Walker, Tatum and Brown are more accomplished than he is. They have been deep into the playoffs. They have put up big numbers in playoffs. They know what it feels like to have the pressure of going to the next round upon their shoulders, and they know what it's like to lose in those games. They know what it's like to win in those games. They've had that whole wide range of experience, whereas for Kemba, this past season was the first time he really had that. And remember, he wasn't fully healthy. So he's dealing with something that these guys have dealt with before, and he's not at full strength. And so to me, there's so many factors that to me come into play that when I hear people say that those guys are just putting up numbers, I can't jump on that narrative train, because I just don't think it's based in reality, and I don't think it's based in just some undeniable facts. Their age is an undeniable fact. Their lack of experience as being the faces of a franchise, that's an undeniable fact. The fact that they don't have the kind of, that I would like the Kevin Garnett like leadership that when you're trying to build a championship team, you've got that voice in your locker room. There's no one in that locker room like that. And Marcus Smart is probably as close as you got, but with him being hurt, he can't be the dog that we know Marcus can be. And so when you don't got your big dog barking, you don't have anyone even close to that has that kind of presence, you got to figure this thing out on your damn. And I think Tatum and Brown are trying to do their best. I think Jaylen specifically has really gone far and beyond the expectations that anyone had.
Yes.
I mean, I thought, full disclosure, when I was in down in Marietta about a year ago, and his AAU coach and his high school coach are talking to me about, I asked them about just, where did they see Jaylen big picture? And they talked about multiple all-stars and things of that nature. I'm thinking like, okay, I could see that, but there's another part of me was just like, please, how are you going to have him and Tatum be that dude? Well, apparently they have figured it out. And to me, that's the one thing that I think is often overlooked when you talk about them. As easy as we want to just pit them against each other, they have realized that they can't be great unless the other is great. I don't think it's a coincidence that as Jaylen Brown's ascension this year has risen, Tatum has been pretty damn special too. But the one thing that I will say the biggest difference between them is that Tatum is dealing with over-the-top expectations that he's trying to reach. Brown is dealing with minimized expectations that he has exceeded. So even though both of those guys, I think, are in a similar point in plane in their development and impact, people look at them differently. Jalen,
yeah,
he's
sure.
overachieving. Tatum, he's not achieving, and yet they're at the same place. It's kind of like, it's like the kid with the 4.0. I don't know, that wasn't me. Gets like a 3.8, and it's like, oh, that's pretty good. And then a kid with the 3.2 gets a 3.8, and you're like, wow. Okay. Wow. They're literally doing the same thing, but because of the vantage point that people are looking at them, they look at them differently. All I know is this: both cats are under 25. Both cats got paid by the Celtics. And that is a foundation that when you look around the league, you can't find two cats under 25 each with the kind of bright future as those two, other than maybe Zion and Brandon Ingram. And I'm not sure Brandon Ingram is ever going to get the kind of props that he deserves, because he's a hell of a player too. But those are the only two cats that I can think of off the top of my head that are both under 25 that have been significant impact players already at this point.
Well, hey, you bring up a lot of great points for sure. And I mean, as much as we put a lot on Tatum and Brown's shoulders, everybody does. Everything you're saying makes sense. These guys, and people argue with this with me all the time. I'm like, yo, they're still kind of young. They've been in the league for 3-4 years, and they've been to all these playoffs. They're still young kids learning and growing. So everything you're saying right now definitely reiterates that for sure. But I got one more Celtics question that's burning inside of me before I ask you about some other teams real quick. And I think this conversation is starting to grow louder and louder during the course of the season. And this has to revolve around Danny Ainge. And this is a guy, Marv knows this really well. I've been on Danny Ainge's case for the last couple of years. And the fact of the matter is this: it doesn't seem to me as if he has the urgency to really get this team to the level where we all probably think they're capable of being. We're talking about a team that's been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 seasons. They've had great players come and go, whatever the case may be in terms of leaving in free agency, whatever the case is, this team has been pretty much there, almost there. And then you get to this season where it doesn't seem like Danny Ainge had the urgency during the offseason to really put a solid team together that can get back to where they were the previous season and get over that hump and get to the finals and play in the finals. And I've said for a long time, Danny Ainge, in my mind, could possibly be on a little bit of a hot seat. And people will argue with me all the time. Oh, how can you say that about Danny? He's done so much for the team and the organization since he's been there. Think of the big three. And my thing is this: Danny Ainge, at this point in time, to me, this is his last chance. And when I say that, I believe this Tatum, Brown era, and Smart, I guess you can throw him in there as well. This Tatum, Brown, Smart era is, in my feeling, in my thoughts, Danny Ainge's last chance to show what kind of a GM he is. Because you would think with Tatum and Brown, you can build a team around them and get a ring, maybe 2, maybe 3. Asking, I don't know. But you think you can get something out of these 2 guys as you have them there in their prime by putting a solid team around them. How much do you put on Danny Ainge, and where do you think his job security necessarily lies right now with the organization and just the teams he's built up over the last years and what this team could possibly look like moving forward?
Okay, let me just start off right off the bat with Danny. If we're talking about his role in this team being where it's at and specifically where it's not at, I absolutely put that on him. Danny puts that on Danny. He knows that at the end of the day, you can say all you want about Brad Stevens and coaching. You can say all you want about players slumping, but it's on the GM's head to make sure that the players that he brings into the fold get the job done. And when you look at this roster, Jeff Teague, I like him as a person. Can't stand what I'm seeing as a player. It makes me cringe every time I see him on the floor. When I look at Tristan Thompson, good dude. I mean, very engaging, and he's starting to come around, but he's been a big of a disappointment as well. And you start looking at their roster. The only guys on it that you don't feel have been either as good or better are Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard. That's pretty much it. Almost everyone else has either taken a step back in terms of impact or they've flatlined for the most part in terms of their play. And that's a lot to do with the coach, or excuse me, a lot to do with the GM who brings them into the fold. Now, what does that mean for his job security? I'm gonna just tell you right now, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Danny ain't going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. They have no desire at all to open up that process. And the reason why is because Danny is still doing a good enough job to where you don't feel as though he has completely bottomed out this franchise. If we were like, for example, if let's say that the Celtics this season finish with, sub 500 record and get knocked out in the first round, and let's say next year another sub 500 record, don't even get to the playoffs or don't get out of the first round, then you got to start thinking like, well, you know what, they may, at that point it becomes a very real topic of conversation. But right now, I don't see any movement at all on that front. And frankly, the one disappointment I would say with Danny is that when you have a team that comes on the cusp of getting to the NBA Finals, you typically do something of significance that offseason to get you over that hump, because you did enough to get to the edge of excellence, which is getting to the finals. What can I do to get over the hump? And that to me has been the challenge for them. And I don't know whether that's, Danny needing to get better players, whether that's Brad Stevens needing to step up his coaching game, whatever the factors are, whatever the reasons may be, that's not happening. And at some point, no matter how good they may finish in the regular season, that has to be taken into account. That what's the GM's role in putting a team together that can get to the finals, and like, for example, I look at a team like Milwaukee, they're probably going to finish in the top 2 or 3. But he's on the hot seat. Mike Budenholzer, he's definitely on the hot seat because that team has been the best team in the East, record wise the last couple of years. And when the conference finals roll around, they're pretty much doing the same thing we're doing. They're watching to see who's playing because they ain't playing. So Milwaukee, and they've been very good in the East, but haven't been good enough to get over the hump. And with the Greek Freak signing on forever and a day contract, there is greater pressure for them to get out of the East this year than there has ever been, because I gotta believe that when Giannis put pen to paper and just signed that ridiculously deal, that is deserving because he's been that good. It was done with the expectation it was that they would get to the conference finals or NBA finals, and if they don't, bring in someone as a coach who can get them there.
Wow. Sorry for Budenholzer, because this is gonna be his last. I don't believe in the Milwaukee Bucks at all. Just how they're constructed. I mean, Drew Holiday in the playoffs might make a difference. I think he's just been hurt, but he's shown flashes that this Bucks team can be a little different. But with Giannis not being able to do anything in the fourth quarter, because teams figure him out in the fourth, and when it comes to the playoffs, it's gonna be really difficult. We're gonna transition. We're gonna transition to a classic Double M segment on pretenders and contenders, a classic one. What we're gonna do is we're gonna name out some teams, and all of us got like 30 seconds to a minute to either say are they pretenders or contenders. So if you're a contender, that means you have a chance to make it to the conference finals. Pretender, your record might look good, but we already know it's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen for you. So I'm gonna shoot them out. We got 30 seconds to
shoot them out, Mal. Shoot them out.
All right. Quick, easy one. New York Knicks. So I think they're 500, above 500. Julius Randle, first time All-Star. How do we feel about the New York Knicks, fellas? Mike.
Woo! It's only the first year they're having a pretty decent season. Those guys are pretenders, man. You got to show me some more consistency with how you're playing. So they're pretenders for me.
Listen, there's no question that they're pretenders. If we're talking about conference finals, NBA finals, they're pretenders. It's great that they've gone from from ashy to classy in the East, right. And I like that. I appreciate that. It makes it far more interesting. But they ain't ready for the conference finals and just the battles that you got to get through in order to win those games. They're going to put up a good fight, but they're not ready for that.
Yeah, I have them as pretenders too. I hope Tom Thibodeau, his career is not going to be that coach. There's always that coach that you use to fire up your team, and then you fire him, and then another team needs a fire up. They bring in Tom Thibodeau, and he does that. Hopefully, he has a home with the New York Knicks. We love Tom Thibodeau over here in Boston. Next team, Phoenix Suns. Mentioned earlier, You know, they're the number 2 seed right now. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mike Nice. Pretenders or contenders?
Who they played pretty well against the Lakers recently. So I definitely got to, as long as Chris Paul, I know Sherrod brought this up early in the show, as long as Chris Paul can make it through the season and later on in the season and into the playoffs healthy, I definitely have them as contenders. I think coming out of the bubble, they showed that their young little core of Booker and they have something there. And Monty Williams is a solid coach, I believe. But Chris Paul is really that piece that can have them get to that next level. They can be the next surprise Denver Nuggets or something like that. So I definitely have Phoenix with the healthy Chris Paul as contenders.
I'm going to call them pretenders. And I'm going to use that very same reasoning because of Chris Paul. He becomes Mr. Handle with Care come playoff time. And pretty much every year, he's not handled with care. And so what happens, he disappears, whether it's an injury, whether it's inconsistent play, but he's not a guy that evokes confidence in me getting my team to the conference finals or finals. I think he's going to have a great regular season. I think he will continue to make an impact, a positive one for the Suns, and give them a great record and a great seed come playoff time. But that team ain't getting to the conference finals. I just don't think that Chris Paul is going to be durable enough to make that happen. And that is a problem for the Suns.
Definitely have them as pretenders too. I love Chris Paul, but when it comes to the playoffs, you take away that series against the Spurs, I just don't see him doing it. Turns the ball over, and hopefully his hamstring can make it, you know, knock on wood. Hopefully his hamstring can make it to the playoffs.
But guy, come on.
I like Chris Paul, but I don't see them being Utah. I don't see them being Denver. They're not going to beat the Lakers fully healthy. They're pretenders at the moment. So moving on to the next
Farm ain't going to bail him out. I mean, they have great coverage and great plan, but hey, sorry,
no, Jake ain't coming through.
Jake can't save you on this one.
Another team who has an MVP candidate that's not getting talked about enough, and maybe it's due to their playoffs, is the Denver Nuggets. You got Joker balling right now. Jamal Murray seems like he's finally getting back into playoff form. Denver Nuggets, pretenders or contenders?
Woo! I have Denver as contenders, and I believe more so this year they found a way to get that next guy to step up, and I think that next guy, as he continues to develop, is Michael Porter Jr. And if you can have a combination of Jokic doing his thing and Jamal Murray adding to the game, but you get Michael Porter Jr. continuing to develop and add to his game and just be a third scoring option for them, I think that they can be a solid team. They were right there before, obviously, they ran into the Lakers, and it just the wheels fell off that truck real quick. But I believe, especially with Joker playing at an MVP level, they can be right there and making another appearance in the conference finals.
Pretenders. Not buying it. I like Michael Porter Jr. as a player. I think he's got the potential to be really good, but I just don't think he's not that consistent number 3 that they need. If he were more reliable, I would definitely put them in the conversation, but I see them getting no further than the second round of the playoffs if they get that far. Because I think that as great as Jokic is, and as you know, jacuzzi hot as Jamal can get shooting a rock, I don't think they're good enough to get past a team like the Clippers, the team like the Lakers, a team like Utah Jazz, because they're going to have to play one of those 3 in order to get to the conference finals. That's a given. And I just don't see them in a best of 7 being good enough to beat any one of them.
I think I'm gonna go with pretenders as well. As much as I like Jokic, we keep saying it. I think Denver just needs another piece. And I don't know if Michael Porter is that piece. And he could surprise us in the playoffs and become that piece. I don't know if he's there. I don't know if he's there yet. We got two more contenders and pretenders. This team right here has a new coach, number 1 seed in the East currently, they have the true MVP candidate and Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons is an all-star. What do we feel about the 76ers as pretenders or contenders?
Joel Embiid is playing some inspired basketball right now. And he's always been a great player, but something about Joel Embiid this season is different. It's like he's taking basketball really seriously. And he's been a dominant player before. He's been locked in, I guess. But something about the way he's going about this season, the way he talks to the media about the game and how he wants to improve and do this and that. Doc Rivers has brought something to that team that has them playing on an elite level. And obviously they've been successful in the past. But I just think I always go back and forth to who's the most dominant big man in the game between Joker and Embiid. But Embiid is doing his thing right now. You give Embiid the ball, it's like an automatic bucket. And I think Doc Rivers is a pretty solid coach to help lead that team. So I definitely have them as contenders. I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, and I can easily see them representing the East in the finals.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they are one of the more legit contenders in all of the NBA, frankly. When you look at the talent, you look at the coaching, you look at the transformative play of their core guys. And the biggest thing Doc Rivers has brought to the table is he has brought about an established pecking order. You remember Ben Simmons and Joel seem to be damn near fighting for an 8 alpha status. Foolish. When Doc gets there, Joel, we're going to run offense through you. Tobias, yes, Tobias, come in the room. Come over here, Tobias. Come on, come here. You are going to be Robin. You are going to be Pippen. You are going to be that number 2 scoring option to Joel. Now, Ben, we need you to do everything else. We need you to rebound. We need you to defend. We need you to do everything that is not getting done because you are exceptional at doing those things. And if you do that, Tobias, you do your job. Joel, get your butt in shape and make more plays around the basket and stop spending all your damn time out by the 3-point line. We got a chance to be special. And that's exactly what they've done. That's exactly why they're one of the teams that everyone in the East is worried about, because Joel has finally figured out that, you know what? I can absolutely beast mode cats all day long, and I can still shoot my threes too. It's not an and or thing. It's in addition to. So without question, they're contenders.
Definitely contenders. And my reason is Ben Simmons, that you mentioned, Sherrod. I was going to put them in pretenders until I watched them play against the Lakers. And Ben Simmons, the one who can not slow down LeBron, but the defense he played on LeBron that night showed me everything I needed to see. He's an exceptional defensive player and a very smart player. And now that he has his role established, and you know how to feed the ball to Joel, get Tobias. And I love how in end games, they give Tobias the ball to be the closer. And that is perfect. You have a guy who can make the bucket. Tobias has been a tweener. You never knew if he was a superstar, a star, role player. He's finally found his role in Philadelphia in the Sixers, and I think they're gonna they like Mike said, represent the East going into the final. The last one, this was the poster child of pretenders last year, the Los Angeles Clippers. How do we feel about the Los Angeles Clippers? They robbed us of probably a beautiful conference finals. Kawhi versus LeBron, the storyline of the King of LA. Everybody wanted to see it. It looked like it was a foregone conclusion last year, up 3-1 against the Nuggets. But, you know, when you pretend, you pretend. And how's it looking this year under Ty Lue?
Man. Oh, this is tough. As much as I believe that Kawhi is top talent in the league, I gotta put them as pretenders, man. Something about the Clippers, just something missing from that team that just doesn't have me look at them and say, yeah, to the finals. Yeah, they can secure a championship. And I like Ty Lue. I think having Ty Lue as a coach was a great move for them. I honestly believe the best option they could have made during the course of the offseason was trying to get Rondo from the Lakers and bring him over to the Clippers. I thought that was a move. I thought that was a foregone conclusion, but Rondo clearly had other ideas and passions and want to go to Atlanta for whatever reason. I don't know if a combination of Patrick Beverly and who's their other point guard, Reggie Jackson. Lou Will, like something about the way that team is set up. And I think losing Montrezl Harrell was huge for them, even though, he didn't really help last year because of a lot of different issues. Something about the Clippers just doesn't sit right with me. I think they still have the possibility of being in that team in the next couple of years if they can keep Paul George and Kawhi Leonard together. But I don't know if this is the year for them. I got them as pretenders again.
Pretenders. Look, it goes back to that Charlie Brown, Lucy analogy. I ain't falling for this no more. I've seen enough of Paul George to make me very, very skeptical that he's going to deliver in the clutch, in the playoffs, when it matters most. Kawhi is going to do what Kawhi does because he's that phenomenal a talent. But I look at the guys around him, and they just don't make me feel as though this team is capable of taking that next step. And when you start looking around I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if let's say they get a first round matchup against a lower seeded Dallas Mavericks team and the Mavericks knock them off. Would not shock me. Would not shock me one bit. And that to me is a clear sign that this is probably a team that you're probably not going to put too much time investing in believing that they're going to make a deep playoff run. So no, I put the Clippers as pretenders. I at best they get to the second round. I just don't, and I'm real on the fence about them even getting out of the first round. It's going to be about the matchup more than anything.
Wow. I have them as pretenders. I still have them getting out of the first round just due to Kawhi Leonard. But I don't think Kawhi Leonard is the right leader for that team. And Mike, you said it. The thing that they're missing a point guard. They don't have a point guard on that team whatsoever. Patrick Beverly, we know what he can do sometimes in the game. Reggie Jackson and Lou Will, when they're hot, they're hot. The Clippers are, if they're making buckets, they're hot. But when we're talking about a 7-game series, where you need that crunch time, it's going to be more than Kawhi. PG, I mean, he said he's going to be on people's backs this year. Can he prove it?
Remains to be seen.
I'm not going to get fooled by that. I'm not getting fooled by that. But that was Pretenders and Contenders Double M edition for sure. Thank you guys for playing.
All right. So, as we move along and we getting ready to soon wrap things up, as we've stated in our most recent show, it is Women's Month. So all month long here on Double M, we are giving out flowers to our beautiful women who deserve them. There's so many women. The list goes on. The last episode, I spoke about how moms deserve flowers. Shout out to all the moms out there. Spoke highly about my mom. She gave me a little shout out for sure on the YouTube page. Thanks, Mom. And Marv, who did you bring up again?
Amanda Grossman. Amanda, the young woman who spoke up in the inaugural.
Yes. So we giving out flowers, like I said. So as we have our guest here, Sherrod, we want to open the floor up to you to give out flowers during this great Women's History Month. Is there anybody you would love to give flowers out to?
Well, you know what? When we think about women in history and that, we tend to focus on those individuals of the past, folks who have blazed trails, who've done really amazing things, whether it's in our own personal lives or whether it was in the lives of others. And I'm a little bit different like that. I think that there are some amazing women in the world of sports right now who are doing things that I think are absolutely game changers. One person that I would single out is Jemele Hill. I think what she is doing as an entrepreneur, as someone who is creating jobs for other people of color, as someone who is changing the way we look at being an entrepreneur in the journalism world, in the digital space, that is someone who is doing what so many of us, frankly, are being called to do, and that is change the lives of others around us in a better way. And we're doing it in multiple ways. So she's someone that I would love to make sure she got her flowers, because she really is being the change that she wants to see and not the change that we talk about. That's that next level grown stuff. When you can be the change and not talk about it. That's how she rolls, and I roll with her. And so, yeah, that's the one I would definitely give some flowers to.
Yeah, I love everything Jemele Hill stands for. Just following her when she was at ESPN, and then when she eventually left, in her own podcast and the show that she has now with Carrie Champion, and always being real. Ever since she's been on the screen, she's always kept it 100 and been herself, and she's been an influence for me as well. So I love that. Shout out to Jemele Hill for sure.
Yeah.
Her outspokenness to me is huge. I love that she's always willing, ready to speak out on every and anything. That's what I really take away from her so much.
Right. And I would again be remiss if I didn't just come clean with me and Jamel in our relationship. I've known Jamel since she was in college. She was actually my first mentee, and I can just tell you right now, it didn't go over well when we first met each other. It did not go well at all. She had came into the newsroom, and I had some issues with how she was dressed. She had on jeans, and she had on this like football mesh jersey. And my first thought was, now this person, and first of all, her name Jamel Hill. One of my friends in high school, his name was Jamel. And so first time I saw her from the back. So I thought it was a dude, jeans, mesh jersey. And so when I see him walk through here, I get out of my seat. I'm like I'm about to straighten this brother out before he get up. And he came in the newsroom looking all jacked up. And so then I come around, and then I see the face, and I'm like, oh damn, she female. But you know what? I went too far. I was not turning back now. So I went in, and Jamel gave me what I can only describe as the "you are not my daddy" look, which as a young cat then had never seen that before. It felt kind of icky. I felt like violated over that look. She lit into me with them eyes. And over time, she understood where I was coming from about how, we need to be conscious of how we carry ourselves, because regardless of what we do, we're going to be perceived as it being for others. Always be your best, be the best version of yourself every day and Sunday. And that was something that, we over the years we talk more and more about, and she's made some tremendous strides and impacts. And the one thing we often talked about was that there's no sacrifice for success. There's something that you're going to have to give up in order to get that ring, that prize, that whatever it is that you want. And to her credit, she made the sacrifices she needed to do. She modified some things to better, frankly, give herself a chance to be great. That was my biggest fear for her, was that she wouldn't get an opportunity for her greatness to shine. And I give her all the credit and all the praise for figuring out what she needed to do, when she needed to do it, and executing whatever that plan was to the fullest. And now she's just such a badass boss lady. And I love that about her. And so that's why, again, when we talk, we can joke about it now. And we joked about it at her wedding, like last year, that we've come a long way in our relationship, from that "you are not my daddy" look, to where now we actually can laugh it off. But I remember that day, there were no laughs, there were no kiki ha moments.
That was real.
That was real. But she understood that was real love. And that I didn't come at her because I was mean. I came at her like that because I'm meaning her to get better, and I care for her. And that's, and Mike, how, I'm like that with a lot of folks. I mean, there's a reason why Kwani and I are doing a podcast together. That was completely intentional, 100% intentional. I only talked to one person about being a co-host, and she was it. And to me, that was the one thing that when putting it together, I just did not have any intention of negotiating or debating that or trying to compromise. No, I needed her, because more than I needed her, she needed that opportunity. And Kwani she's doing a great job, and I love working with her. And again, that's, this is like one of my favorite months, because it gives me an opportunity to talk, people who mean a lot to me, like Kwani and Jamel, and there's a long laundry list of folks.
Yes,
and as much as I love my black people, white people, there's some white people that I'm cool with too. And like earlier today, we and actually it's up on all your podcasting apps now, and along with this is our latest episode where we talk to Doris Burke. And we talk about, again, we get into just women, Women's History Month. We obviously talk Celtic stuff as well. But, that was a conscious move on my part to try to get her in the month of March, because that's Women's History Month. You know, we need to do better by our women. We need to celebrate them, acknowledge them, give them their flowers, which you guys are doing now, which I thought was a great idea. And I just may happen to sample this for our episode next week. Course, and I will give credit where credit is due, because that's what we do.
Appreciate you.
But this was a great idea to have this part of the conversation. I do appreciate that.
I think it's men of color to, you know, really come out and, you know, give out our flowers and show respect to the woman, because they don't hear it or get it enough. So that's what we're trying to do here in Double M. And thank you for that. Shout out to, you know, Jamel Hill and Kwani Lewis for sure. Mike, do we Sherrod, do you have time, like two more minutes? Do you have 2 more?
Yeah,
minutes?
We got it. We got it.
Woo! Okay, you might want to loosen up the sleeves a little bit.
Relax a little bit.
Get a little hot here, real quick. You're on the hot seat here, so we're gonna ask you some rapid fire questions, and you just gotta give us answers right off the top of the head. Whatever you thinking, whatever you feeling, whatever the answer is, just bam, let it be known to the people. All right?
Let's do it.
I'll start it off right here. If you could choose any type of food to have for dinner right now, what would it be?
Banana pudding.
For dinner?
Yup. Didn't see that coming. I know you didn't.
Oh, I sure didn't.
It's like literally the most. It is the favorite food. My mama's banana pudding is the best banana pudding on the planet. I can eat that for dinner every night.
Wow. Shout out to mama for sure. All right.
Mama Blakely put it down. Just let y'all know.
iPhone or Android?
Android.
Woo! Shout out to the Androids. Mom don't believe them.
Listen, here's the thing about the Android that people don't give it the prop. First of all, iTunes, you know, Apple iTunes, it's great. No disrespect to them, but the thing about Android is the Android iOS is in like 78% of the digital stuff that we use in the world. So the chances of me having something go wrong with it and finding a place where I can get it fixed are exponentially better than they are if I got an Apple or an iTunes. So that's why I like Android. There's just more options that I have to choose from.
Thank you.
Mike, we'll just edit that part out of the
Hey man, you leave that right there. Someone had to speak on it. All right. Let me see. Top sports movie of all time in your opinion.
Ooh, top one all time. You know which one? And gosh, my favorite one. This is
many.
Tough.
So many.
There are. Because there's one that I recently saw, and it's not your typical. It's the one where Regina King was the producer with Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, the one in Miami.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
That movie, I'm telling you right now, that movie is fire.
Yes,
fire. Yeah. It's right now. It's when I think about sports movies, I think about that one, not only because of the particulars of who was involved, but just the fact that again, as we think about Women's History Month, and I think about the work that Regina King put in to put that bad boy together. Classic.
I've already watched that movie 3 times.
I'm there. Yeah,
I love it. I love the hypothetical conversations that could have possibly happened in that room. You could have gone so many different directions, and the direction Regina King went through, amazing.
And just like I think about like the rooftop scene where it seems like cats were about to like scrap.
That intense,
and I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm for this. I'm down with this. That movie was great. That's the one when I think of right now. That's probably my favorite sports movie right now. Because I'm just feeling that one right now. So I may be in my feelings on that one. I admit that. But that's the one I got right now.
That's a good top 3 artists right now.
Top 3 artists. Well, Bobby Shmurda is that's one that I'm happy to give a shout out to because he's back in the game. So that's one
had it one time for Bobby.
That's what I'm saying. He's one that I like. I like him a lot. And most OGs don't really recognize him and know about him, but you know, I like him a lot. Top 3, because I like so many.
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
Yeah, I'm gonna go old school with y'all though. I'm gonna go with the ones that I like. I'm always gonna rock forever and a day. Gangstar, gonna rock him forever. And Tribe Called Quest. Them the ones I love.
All right, cool.
I like it. I like it.
All right, my last one
I
here.
had to put Bobby in the mix though, man, because Bobby's on my mind.
He's on all of our minds right now.
All right, my last one here. If you can invite any 4 people to dinner with you throughout history, sports history, let's keep it sports related. Throughout sports history, if you can have 4 guests that you can bring to dinner, who would they be?
4. Jesse Owens. Arthur Ashe. And let's see. Althea Gibson.
Okay.
And my last one's someone. Does it have to be someone that's dead, or can it be someone alive?
No, past, present, alive, doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. And my last one, yes, my dude, Rasheed Abdul-Wallace.
Wow.
Hey, I like that.
I love Rasheed Wallace is and someone was asking me about this a few weeks ago, like who's like your favorite person that you worked with as far as athletes, and Rasheed Wallace is that guy. I love me some Rasheed Wallace, and the thing that I love about him, the thing about him that people don't realize is his intelligence. He's one of the more intelligent players I've ever been around, and it used to frustrate the hell out of me that he almost went out of his way to not let that shine through. One day when we were in Detroit, she just came up to me and just said, "Hey, let's go get lunch." And I'm like, "Shoot, okay, I'm down." so we go to get lunch, and we're walking. We were on the road, and we're walking to like the restaurant, and he just comes out of the blue and just says, "So what was the last good book you read?" Which just kind of threw me, because I'm like, "Oh, he wants to know like the hell I'm thinking." Okay. And so I tell him what I read, and then I ask him like, "Okay, I'm gonna play this game. What was the last good book you read?" And he begins to start talking about Genghis Khan. And he starts going on about his leadership and how controversial he was, and just dropping some serious, like, we're not talking about like drip knowledge. We talk about like turn the faucet on, blast knowledge, just pouring all this knowledge on me. And then we started talking about NASCAR. And then we started talking. It was like one of the most random conversations I've ever had in life. And I remember just coming away thinking like, this brother is way more knowledgeable about life than people realize. And did I write a story about it? Hell yeah. Because it was just such an amazing, and that wasn't even the interview. We did an interview later, but that conversation formed the basis of the interview. And I talked to other folks who were around him, like Steve Smith, down with Turner, who talked about how, she used to be on a team playing when they were in Portland, and he would have his own little private library of books that he would be reading as they travel from one city to the other. And I'm thinking like, is this the same brother that be getting all these damn texts and be funding all these damn NBA charities with the fines that he's picking up from all these damn texts? And it changed my complete outlook on him. And again, I always respected his talent as a player because that was the one thing that no one could deny. But I gained a greater appreciation of his intellect and his curiosity beyond just being a basketball player, and just really some of the things that became some of the tenets for why he did certain things and why he did not do certain things. And so I would love to have him in a group of great athletes so that they could see what I see. And so that when they go back and talk to their friends up in heaven or wherever they may be, and his name just happens to come up, I don't know how, but it just might come up, they can say things that are similar to what I see. And then that could change the narrative and the perspective and how people look at him. So yeah, I'm a big Rasheed Wallace fan. Ball don't lie. Ball don't lie. And real talk, he should have got that bad boy copyrighted, because that's his phrase. And people use that thing as if it's like their own. I mean, come on. That man should get a check for that. I'm just saying.
He's probably kicking himself for that one. People have definitely told him, man, you should have gotten that that
Yes.
copyright for sure.
Yes.
Last question for you. Last question, and we appreciate your time. Who would you like to see next on Double M Live?
Woo.
Well, I'm cheating when I say this because I think they're going to be on anyway. But I'd
You
like
can't
to
do
see
that.
Kwani Lunis.
Yeah, she's gonna be
We
on
got
there.
her.
It's gonna be a great show.
If she's not going to be on, I think I would like to see Cedric Maxwell.
Ooh. I went to high school with Cedric Maxwell's son, Madison Maxwell.
Okay.
My God.
Wow. So
yeah, I'd like to see Cedric because Cedric has great stories to tell, and you know he's kind of like a lot of OGs. He's kind of figuring out his way through this new era of content media consumption. He's got a podcast and he's doing some other things too. So he would be good. I would definitely check him out. Because Max always got something to say, whether it's smart, funny, crazy. But you're gonna remember it. I love that brother. Love that brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Close out, Mike. Nice.
Sherrod, this has been excellent. Hearing your knowledge, your perspective, your insight, all of that on this episode of Double M here has been great. And I'm telling you, I can speak for Marv for sure. Myself, we greatly appreciate you being a guest on the show, man. We appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem, brothers. Y'all know how to find me. I'll be around.
Absolutely. We definitely got to do this again, man, because there's so much great conversation that could be had. But, you know, once again, this has been Double M with myself, Mike Nice. We got Marv here and our special guest joining us, Mr. A. Sherrod Blakely. Make sure you follow him scrolling down there at the bottom, his IG, his Twitter. Check him out. Bleacher Report, Boston Sports Journal, the A-List podcast with Kwani Lunis. Check it all out. It's been A. Sherrod Blakely here on Double M. Mike, Marv, we are signing out. Till the next time.
We out. Thank you.
Double M.